In this exercise, we're going to take this document called 4-Page Floral 6in.ai, found inside the O3 Open folder, and we're going to increase its size so that it previews better inside the Adobe Bridge, and I'll show you what that looks like in a subsequent exercise. Now, I mentioned that this illustration comes to us from Tolchik of the Fotolia Image Library, but I want you to know if I don't tell you where an illustration came from, which is the way it's going to work inside of most of the chapters of this series, then it came from me. So I create most of my own assets, just FYI. Now, what I want to do in the case of this illustration is I want to expand the size of each one of these 4 artboards, and I also want to expand the size of the various elements of the illustration as well. And we have to do that in 2 separate passes, as you're about to see. And there's all kinds of reasons to do this, even though you can zoom in on an illustration, and I'll go ahead and zoom in, let's say, on this bottom right artboard by Control Spacebar clicking or Command Spacebar clicking on the Mac. As you zoom in, you get greater and greater clarity because Illustrator is resolving every single one of these vector-based lines and shapes. However, that's not the way that previewing works inside of all the other Adobe programs. For example, when you're looking at an illustration inside of the Bridge, it's just going to show you that illustration at what it considers to be 100%. So once you're seeing what the Bridge regards as a 6 by 6 inch page, then once you start zooming in, you just see big pixels. You don't actually see all of this clarity. If you want better previews, then you've got to create larger artwork in the first place. And 6 by 6 inch artwork is pretty darn small. So we're going to expand the heck out of this artwork. I'll go ahead and zoom out so that I can take in the entire illustration at a time. And I had actually saved this illustration with something like a 60% zoom ratio, I think. And that's something to note, is that Illustrator actually does save the zoom info along with your illustration so that you can come back to that exact same place where you left off. It's a really great thing. Anyway, let's start off by modifying the size of the artboards. I'm going to switch to the artboard tool, which I can get by pressing Shift-O if I like. And in my case, artboard number 1 is selected. And I'm going to expand the size of artboard 1. For starters, by clicking in the lower right reference point in this reference point matrix in the control panel. That way we'll expand the size of the artboard from its bottom right corner. And then I'll switch over to the W value, and I want you to see something. I've got this chain icon turned on so that the width and height values will change proportionally. If you're not seeing little lines next to the chain icon, then go ahead and click on it. So notice that this chain without the horizontal dashes, that means that there is no link, and this chain here means there is a link. All right, now I'm going to change the width value to 20 IN. And that will change the artboard to 20 inches wide by 20 inches tall. If you're not comfortable with inches, you'd prefer to work with centimeters, then by all means do. Just go with a very large value. All right, so I'll press the Tab key. Notice that Illustrator automatically converts both the width and height values to 1440 points, which is 20 inches times 72 points per inch. And we get this big artboard in the upper left corner. All right, now let's switch to artboard number 2. And as you may recall, you have to modify artboards independently inside of Illustrator. I'll go ahead and click on artboard number 2. I will select the bottom left reference point. I'll go over to the width value, and this time, instead of changing it to 20 inches, I know it needs to be 1440 points. So I'll just enter 1440, press the Tab key. I'm good to go. I'll click on the bottom left artboard. I'll switch my reference point to top right. And then I'll change the height value this time around, just for variety, to 1440. Press the Enter key or the Return key on the Mac. And finally, I'll do that same thing with artboard 4 with one small modification. Click on artboard 4, change its reference point to upper left this time around. That's the modification. Otherwise, same thing. W value to 1440. Press the Enter key or the Return key on the Mac to do the deed. Now notice, even though I have this icon here, Move Copy Artwork with Artboard, I have it turned on. That doesn't have any effect on the scaling of the objects inside of my illustration. So because none of the artboards moved, I haven't changed a single line or shape in the illustration. All right, to modify the illustration, I'll have to leave the artboard edit mode by pressing the Escape key. Then I'll go ahead and zoom out, and I'll press Control A or Command A on the Mac to select everything inside the illustration across all the various artboards. And then I'm going to scale my objects with respect to their centers. And I'm going to do that from the Transform panel. So you should see the word Transform on the right side of the Control panel. Go ahead and click on it to bring up that panel like so. Make sure that the center reference point is selected. That's very important so that we're scaling all of our illustration from the center outward. And we're going to change the width and height values together. So make sure the chain icon is turned on, which it is in my case. So you should see little lines linking both the width and height values. And then I want to change either the width or height value. I'll go ahead and click W to change the width value to a percentage. In this case, I have to do the math manually. Even though Illustrator will do math for me, it's not capable of handling a percentage at the same time as the math. And I happen to know that 20 divided by 6, because that's after all what we're doing. We're taking an illustration that formerly fit on a 6-inch page and we're transforming it so it fits on a 20-inch page. So 20 divided by 6 is 333.33%. So I want you to enter 333.33 space, very important, percent, like so, and then press the tab key. And that's all it takes. That'll go ahead and expand the size of those objects to whatever size they need to be, 43.1021 inches wide. I don't care. That's fine. Now I'll hide the transform panel. And now what I need to do is grab each one of these groups of objects and align them properly to their various artboards. And I'm going to do exactly that in the next exercise.